So I'll just give another minute for all of you to go to the Collab notebook, and then I'll start the session. Thank you, Athia, for sharing the link. So can you guys confirm? Can you guys confirm if you can access the notebook? Just say yes or like send it in the chat.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I got it too.
Okay, thank you. And so I'll just recap what we learned from the last workshop. So Python is just another language as C, Java, and C++. And it's just a programming language that allows you to give certain instructions to the computer to execute certain tasks. Now, each language has its own syntax and formatting, and Python has its own syntax and formatting. That's quite different from Java, C, and C++. It's quite easy and simpler, as you might have seen from last week. And so it's quite quick and easy for beginners to like learn it and build programs using it. The main purpose of teaching this is because we'll be having workshops on machine learning and neural networks and all, and we'll use Python for that. So to understand the machine learning and AI concepts, knowing Python is important. And even if you're like interested in web development, there are frameworks like Flask, which you code in Python to like develop the back end of the web app. So as you can see from last week, we touched upon some reserved words that are like some words that you cannot use out of context. So we have like def, that's for creating functions. If else elif is for creating logic in the program. So if you do this, then else you can do that. So that's what if and else and elif are. And or not are the logical operators. So if two conditions use and as the operator, then both of the conditions need to be true for the task to execute. And if you use or, then either of the conditions needs to be true for the task to execute. And we'll also learn about for and while loops. We just talked about briefly in the last workshop, but in this workshop, we'll go quite in deep about the content of different ways we can have for loop and while loops. And then we have like basic print, break, pass, which are just like some common or that you often use it if you want to in loops and all. And import is an important reserved word that's used for like using external libraries that you can use in your program. And just like in any programming language, we have variables, and that too with Python. So in variable is just like a placeholder whose value you can change, and it doesn't have to be the same value. The thing with Python is that variables do not have any type, but the values do. So if a equals 5, if we have that, we don't need to specify that a equals is an integer, which you need to do in Java and C. But in Python, you don't need to do that. But 5 as a number has a type. So you cannot compare like a 5 with a string. So you need to be mindful of that. So a value has a type, but a variable doesn't have a type in Python. And then the style in Python is that we use indentation. So as you can see in the code from last week, we don't use brackets. If you guys are familiar with Java and C++, we use indentations to let the program know that all of this code is within the scope of the function. So that's what indentation is for. We use colons to let the program know that we're starting or need to scope up for a function or for a loop. And we do not use semicolons. So in Java and C++, you need to like add semicolons at the end of the statement. We don't do that in Python. So it's quite simple. And just like other languages, we have similar data types like integers, strings, floats, Boolean, which are quite self-explanatory. And we went over it from the last workshop. And then we have data structures like list and tuple. List and tuple are the same thing, but tuple cannot be changed. It's immutable, while a list can be changed, its elements can be changed. And we could see it in the function, in the program from last week. So we have the list here, and if you run it, it runs well. But if you run it with a tuple, it gives an error because tuples, the values of the tuples cannot be changed, they're immutable. And then we have dictionary, which is, if you go in advanced programming courses, there's a data structure called association list that has like keys and value pairs. So dictionary is just a similar implementation of it in Python. And so we also had some string operators to show about how we can concatenate strings and how we can use format specifiers like %s and %d to include strings and like integer variables and include it in a string format. So that's a recap from the last week's session. Hopefully that last week's session kind of helped you and like get into like the basics of Python and all. And now we'll go into loops. So loops are like certain instructions that are continually repeated until a certain condition is reached. And you can find loops in almost every programming languages in their own ways. Java has loops, C has loops, most of the other languages have loops. So just again, the syntax is different. It's as simple as that. So if you know any language, like Python or Java, you can switch on to other languages because the fundamentals are the same, but the way you write it and the format is kind of different. So for loop is, so we have two common loops. That's the for loop and there's the while loop. So in the for loop, you loop until you reach like a specific number or time. Like if you loop until like 5 times or like 6 times, there's like a discrete number with for loops, and you can like loop through a list as you can see right now. So let's say we have a list called languages and we have it as Python, Java, C. So, and also just to make you guys remind you, you can like add your code and text to it by making a copy of this document. So make sure to make a copy of it if you want to like add your text and code to it. Yep. So we just continue. So for instance, we have like a loop, we have like a list languages, and we need to like loop through it, which means we need to like go through it and pass through it. So what we can do is that we can have like for lang in languages, and we can just be like print lang. So as you can see, we loop through the list and we printed each and every element. So here we are starting. So the for is a reserve word. So you always need to like use for and start a for loop. Now, if you look at the word lang, you can have it as anything. It's just a variable. So if you want, you can have it as x2. It doesn't matter. It's just a variable that you can use, and it will just do the same thing. And in just refers to like what indexes you want the list to be, the list you're referring to. So you need to make sure that you're having a valid list that you're referring to. So in this case, we have languages. So this is how you can for loop through a list. And in a similar way, you can also like for loop through a string. So you can have like for letters in words, just print letters. So as you can see now, similar to like the list, you can for loop and pass through all the elements and the letters of the word. Now, if you can see the importance of for loop, so if you have like a complex software or program that requires us to like pass through like 1,000 or 10,000 index of like a list, if you need to do that and you need to like print each element of it, you need to like have hundreds and thousands of print statements. But when you use for loop, you just need to do like for x in languages. Now, however long the length of the language may be, it may be 5, it may be 1,000, it may be like 10,000. It doesn't matter. You don't need to like write 10,000 print statements. You just need to do like for x in languages and print x. It's as simple as that. And I hope that you can see how for loops are important and they can like automate the process for you. So, okay. And now we'll try like running it a specific number of times. So let's see if this works. For numbers in phi, print numbers. So what do you guys think? Would this work well? Would this compile well? Is this the right way to do with numbers? Just type it in or like you can speak up. Do you think it will compile? So you can just type it in if you want and you can just speak up. And even if it's wrong, it's fine. Anyone wants to try? Okay, so I'll just move on. So this would not work. It will give you an error because this is not the right way to loop a certain number of times. So as you can see with string and list, we're looping through an object or like a data structure. So you can use the word like you can use in here, and you can just not directly just refer to the word or the object that you're saying. But with numbers, you don't do that. You do it a different way. So we'll have like for I in range 5, print I. So as you can see now, it was able to compile this, but not the above statement. That's because if you're like trying to run it a certain number of times, like 5 or 6 or 7 times, we're not referring to like an object like a list or data structure like a tuple or something. We are referring to a discrete number. So for that, you use a function called range. So with range, it includes like numbers from, range includes numbers from 0 to n minus 1. So as you can see, it's printing out from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not printing out 5 because it's starting from 0. So it has printed out 5 elements and it's starting from 0. So it's like not printing out the 6th element, which is 5 technically. So that's something to be mind of. So it's exclusive of the last element. That's what the range function is. So before I move into while loops, does anyone have any question? You can just like let me know in the chat, or you can speak up. Okay, so okay, no questions. Okay, I can just move on then. And so now for while loops. So while loops is a bit different from for loops, but you can even write a while loop as a for loop and vice versa. So kind of it depends like how you want to like write the loop and what the purpose of it is. You can use a while or a for loop, but you can like at times even interchange it and like convert it into either of the other loops. So if you need to like, so for while loops, you can like run it again like for loop in a for specific time. But the way we write it and the syntax of it is different, which can change its functionality a bit depending on how you write the program. So let's say if we have like a variable dot I equals 0 and sum equals 0, and we're trying to like loop through it. So we have like while I is less than 20, and we'll have like sum plus equals I, and we just like have I change its value. So what we're trying to do is we are starting with a variable called I equals 0 and sum equals 0, and we're just like looping through it about 20 times and like writing, like printing the sum. So it just like run it right now. Okay, so as you can see, it's printing the sum and it's looping through it. If you can see, the difference between the while loop and the for loop is that you need to index on like give an initial value to the index that you're using. Now for loops, you don't need to do that. You can do that, but it's not required. But for while loops, you do need to like initialize the variable that you're using. And also for while loops, if you wanted to iterate through the program, you need to somewhere or the other way increase the counter of the variable. So we're having like I plus equals 1 so that it loops through the program. But if you see in for loops, we don't do that. You don't need to like tell the function to I plus equals 1 to change the index value and to loop through it, but you need to do that with while loops. And so we can, so as I said that we can even write a while loop as a for loop. So I can just show you like how you can do that. So if we need to like write the same thing, we can just be for I in range 20, and we can have sum equals 0. We print sum plus equals I. So if you can see, it will give quite a similar, it's just the same output. It's no different because as I said, like while loop and the for loop functionally they do the same thing, just the way you write it is a bit different and can make you kind of contemplate about which one you want to use. That's a bit more complex and advanced a step to like think about should I use a while loop or a for loop, but in general you can use either of those interchangeably. And we can also like run a while loop to until a certain condition is fulfilled. So that's something you cannot do with a for loop. So for for loop, it needs to be discrete. But with while loops, you can also have a condition that needs to be fulfilled before you can end the loop or you can iterate through it. So I'll just show you right now. So if you have like sum equals 0 and while true. So what we're trying to do is that we're saying through the program that while the condition is true, which it always will be unless we do some make it go false in the program, you just keep running on and on. So you need to make sure like in such programs, you need to like change the condition so that it breaks through the program. Otherwise it will like run infinitely and that's not good. It can give you like, it can just cause you runtime errors and all. So make sure to like break through the loop or change the condition to make it false. So as you can see, we can use condition to like loop through it, which you cannot do with for loops. And so if I try to complete it, so if I is less than 20, you just add I and you can just continue. So if you remember continue from the last workshop and just the recap that I had right now, it will just allow you to like pass through it and just be like, hey, you can just go through it. You don't need to do anything else. So that's what continue is about. And else you can just like break through it or like print sum. So here we are like using the break statement so that if it is less than 20, we are not still like looping through it because it's still like true. And what break does is like, it is just said to the program to come out of it, irrespective of what the condition is. So, and sprint. Just give me a minute. Let's save it. Okay, got it. Okay, now as you can see that it has looped through and got us the sum 20. Now it wouldn't have like come out of it if you didn't like use the break statement. So that's important to like use break statements in such loops if you're like having a condition like true, which would go on infinitely. So that's how like while loops are different from for loops. And if you need to like convert this into a for loop, it's a bit tricky because for loops don't like have a condition as such. As you can see, like they just run for a discrete amount of time. But with while loops, you can like have such conditions, and that's where you can helps you in choosing whether you should go with for loop or a while loop. Okay, so does anyone have any questions before we jump further into the content? Okay, so I'll just move on then. So in Python, we can even interact with the user and provide them with the inputs, like have the user provide us with the inputs that we can use for our code. And for that, we can use the input function. The input function like allows us to like you enter a message, like provide a message as an output and take the user input into the program that you can use to do anything like just print it out or like manipulate it for the program. So these are certain user interactions that we have in Python, and the way we can use this is, for instance, I have like age equals input. So we can save the input or the user input value in a variable. So in this case, I'm using age, and I can just be like add a prompt like a message like type your age. And then I can just print it as my age is and concatenate it. So as you can see, we created a user interaction using the input function. The program is asking the user to type in their age. And if I type in like 19, it's using the user input to print it out and use it in the program. So that's how you can even manipulate it in like complex codes in different ways. Maybe you want to use this information and store it in an SQL database, or like post it using REST APIs and all for backend and stuff. So these user inputs and interactions are very important for such user interfaces that we develop through Python. Okay, so does anyone have any questions about it? Because we'll dive into our programming problem then. We'll try to like use all of these, the knowledge and the stuff that we learned till now to like solve a big problem right now. So you guys have any questions before we move on? Okay. Okay, so now I want you guys to like write a Python program that takes a series of input values to create a list. And the length of the list is like determined by the input of the user. And after like it creates the list, it will like search through it and print the index of the key that has been randomly selected from the list. So what I mean is that we'll have so I want you to like have a list that needs to be created. And now the length of the list would depend on the user input. So for instance, the length will be based on what the user input is. And we'll use that to add elements to it accordingly. And we'll ask the user to input the elements of the list. So for instance, the user typed in 2, 3, 4, 5, then our list needs to be as so 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then after doing that, I want you guys to like randomly select an element in the list. So for instance, you randomly select 3 as the element, and I want you then need to like use this key to search through the list and return the index. So as you know, in programs like Python, the index starts from 0, so 0, 1. So you will return 1 as the index. So this is what the program is about. So as you can see, we'll be using many concepts like list, some functions in list. We'll also be using loops because that will make your life easier. We'll also be using the input function that I just showed you. So I'll say like do challenge yourself using this program, try to write it because it will like challenge yourself and like uplift your Python programming skills. So apart from the stuff that I taught you, you will require to use the import random library because as you can see, the program requires you to like randomly select the key. So you would use the random library, and I didn't tell you what the random library is and how you can use it, and I didn't even tell you about what the list functions are, so you can add elements to list because part of programming is about searching through web, learning, like reading documents and articles and learning yourself. So I want you also guys to get that experience of searching for certain things that you might not know might not know as a programmer, and just searching through it online, reading the documentation and all, and then writing it. So that's how like most programmers do, and it's important that you learn this skill. So we have a gift card for this, like last week. So you can scan. So this is the gift card scanner. Yep, so this is the price form. So please scan this, and for the program, I'll give you 10 minutes to write the program, and I'll start the timer. Okay, I'm starting the timer now. So we have 10 minutes to solve the program, search about random library and try to use it and submit it. So I'll start it in 3, 2, 1, go. And after this, we'll go over the solution and help you guys understand it. But I do recommend like do try it so you can like challenge yourself and like see that if you have learned different skills and knowledge. Okay, so 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Time's up. Okay, so hopefully like you guys tried solving this and submitting it, and you try to like use the knowledge and information that we gave you through the workshops, or you get all you guys already had, and hopefully like this one kind of challenged you a bit. So we'll try like going through the solution. So if you look at it right now, what the first thing that we need to do is list. We need to have a list. That's important. As you can see in the problem, we need to create a list. So let's first create a list. And before that, we need to like import random. So every library that you use, you always like import it at the top. It's not like a must you need to do have it at the top, but it's like a convention because it like makes organizes in a better way. So we'll use import random. So as I said, random is a library. So any library that we want to use, we use the reserved word import. And now we can use the functionalities of different functions of random and all. And so did you guys like if you guys tried this, like, is there any like function that you use from random that you want to share? Like what function did you guys use from the random library? Or like what function do you use with list? You can like speak out or like type it in.
I used a random int.
A random int. Okay, cool. Yep. So they're like so in random there are like many functions. There's like random int. There's random.choice. You can even have like pseudo random numbers. Pseudo randoms are like I won't go into that much, but it's like you give it like a seed, and using that seed or like using that base, it will all just generate random number, certain random numbers using that seed. So that's what pseudo randoms are. So there are different like ways you can have random numbers in using the random library. For this one, you can use random.int. I'll try going using the random.choice. So we are importing random, and now we'll create the list. So to create a list, we just do like declare it and save it to a variable as we learned till now. So we are creating an empty list so that we can add values to it. And now, as you can see in the problem, we need to create a list using user input. So all the length of the list will be determined by the user input. So the length, we'll have it like count as int input, and we'll have a message that I want to have a list of the following number of elements. So as you can see, we're asking the user using the int function that just let us know like what's the length of the list that you want us to have, and we'll store it in the count variable. And the next thing that we need to do is store the elements of the list using the user input. And so as you can see in here, I talked about like if the user puts in 2, 3, 4, 5 values, we need to create a list of 2, 3, 4, 5. So how do we do that? We use for loop to loop through the length of the list so that we have the same number of elements that we're adding to it as the user wants us to. So we loop through it. So for I in range count, and we can save it as int input. So we are saving each input that the user gives us. So this is the input for the element of the list. So like 2, 3, 4, 5 that I talk about. And there's a list function. If you guys search, that's append. So you're appending to the list, adding the values to the list. And wait, just give me a minute. Is it hanging a bit? It's hanging again. It's like freezed. So it's not showing the code.
Do you want to like stop share and then reshare?
Sure. Just give us a minute. There's certain code that I wrote, it's not showing up. I might have to like drop again. Oh, this sucks. Zoom is angry. No. Okay, just give us a few minutes. We'll try it. I'll try to rejoin the meeting in 2 minutes. Yeah, Zoom is giving an end task. End it. I need to rejoin it.
Are you able to stop sharing the screen?
No, you can see like it's not allowing me to. You can see the Zoom is
Jesus Christ.
acting a bit weird.
Yeah.
Okay. Hopefully it ended it. No, it didn't. I can try like, can you share through that screen?
Wait, try. All right, just exit on here. Find how can you exit Zoom from there?
It's
All
not,
right, stop sharing.
It's not accepting it. It's going to error.
Yeah, what is happening?
Okay, so I'll try like tapping it through that. We also need to like share, turn on the share screen. That one's the best.
Or do you want to just restart your computer?
No, that would take time. I just need to like end it to the task manager, and then I can just rejoin it. And okay. So I'll try to recap what I did. So we need to have, so as you can see, we need to have an empty, we imported the random so that we can use its functions, and we created a empty list so that we can take the user input and add the elements to it. Using the input function that we just learned about, we're asking the user to like provide us the length of how much you want the length of the list to be. And then we're just traversing using the for loop across the length that's been provided to us to add like the same number of elements. So if you have like user wants us to like have a length of 5 for the list, so we'll add just like 5 elements. So we're using the for loop for that. And num is a variable that's taking in the elements the user input the user would send us, and we're just like adding it to it. So just like if user gives us 2, 3, 4, 5, it's appending. That's a function that comes with lists and creating a list of 2, 3, 4, 5. So now that we have a list with user inputs, I can also like have a print function to just show you guys what it looks like. And so now we need to like have a random key that we can have, as it's mentioned in the problem, to like have a random key, to like choose a random value from the list. So for that, we'll use the random library that we use. And as you know, libraries are just like pre-written code that we don't need to like rewrite it. We can just reuse it and the modules of it. So we'll use dot choice function of it and have the parameter as values. So what it's trying to do is using the dot choice function to use to like randomly choose a value from the list. Now, as someone else said that, I guess Alkivadis said about using int. So you can even use like int. There are many functions that you can use with random. You can even try like having like a pseudo random pseudo random stuff that I talk about. So there are many ways. For now, the simplest bit I'm trying to do is the dot choice. And I can just like have a print statement key. So we're printing the keys, and we're also like, let's print the lengths too. And we are printing the length of the values to just show you guys and make things more clear. And so now we are creating a function. So why do we need to create a function? So the second part of the program is about searching through it and finding and printing the index of the key. So for that, we're having a function of our own. And as you know, for functions, we use the def prefix. And using def, I created a function called search. And the parameters are values and key. So values again is the list 2, 3, 4, 5, and key is the random element that's been chosen. Maybe it's 3 or 4, anything. So for this too, we can use a for loop and we can traverse through it. So what I'm trying to do here is for the range from 0 to the length -1, it will traverse through the list and try to like search for the values. So if this line doesn't make sense, just let me know. But basically, as I explained, it's just like starting from 0 to like n-1, the length -1 of the list. And we'll just like check if values number equals key. So we are indexing the list. So if you have like list of 0, it will give us like 2. List of 1 would give us 3, and list of 2 would give us 4. As you can see, like these are different indexes, and it starts from 0. So we're doing the same thing. We're saying like for each index that we're starting from 0 up till like the end of the list, just check if it's matching the key. If it is matching the key, then we'll return the index of it. If it's not matching the key, we'll just like go through it. So if it's matching the key, we just then print the return the number. So the number here represents the index. So for the list, if the key is 3, the index of it is 1, 0, 1. So that's what we are returning in this case. So if values is this, we return it, and that's what our function is. And then at the end, I'll just print index is. So basically, I'm just like calling the function to like return the index. Index is search values key. So our function is now working. It's asking for, it's asking like how long do you want the list to be? So I'll say 3, and it's asking for the elements. So I have 1, 2, and wait, 0 again. Oh, okay. Wait, just give me a minute. There's an error. So for find range num equals input values are append num. Oh, never mind. I just forgot to like give the parameter for append to just let you know that you need to like add the value to the list. So we should rerun it now. Okay, so as you can see, we created a list 1, 2, 3, and we have a key that it randomly chose, that's 1, and we then have it the length as 3, and the index is returned at 0, because 1 is is the first element, that's the index 0. So hopefully like this like provided you and helped you like challenge yourself to use all the skills and the knowledge that you had for Python and implement it here. So I had another question related to Fibonacci. We are just out of time now, and I want you to like take some questions if you want to. So if you're really interested into it and you want to like have the solution for it, you can try it out and then reach out to me. You can just send me an email like at rana024@umn.edu. So I can like give you the solution for it. It's also like a good practice problem to try out about Fibonacci numbers. And we just have 5 minutes in. Okay, so that's all we have for today. So through these 2 workshops, we hope that you learn the basic syntax, the index, the basic data types, structures, loops, the user interactions, and the list functions to create your own programs. And hopefully this question like kind of challenged you a bit to like uplift your Python programming skills. So do you guys have any questions now? If you have any questions, just like add it in the chat and like send me, just speak up if you want. Okay, so just give another minute. So just in case someone has any question. Okay, so for next week, that's the last Intro to Python and NumPy Pandas workshop. And it's about the final two main libraries about NumPy and Pandas. In this workshop, we'll present you the two classical libraries that's used with Python, NumPy and Pandas, and it's often like used with data analysis stuff, data manipulation, for machine learning and AI stuff. So it's important that if you're interested in machine learning, AI, data analysis and stuff, that you attend our next session. So hopefully these two sessions have provided you a basic foundation of Python, and you can dive into NumPy and Pandas. And using these three workshops, you can even attend our AI sessions of GDSC if you want to. So we'll make you guys do some neural networks and coding and stuff, and we'll use Python for that. So thank you so much for joining us. Before you guys leave, if you guys can just scan this code and like, this is a feedback form. We forgot to have this from last week. So do fill this form out and let us know, provide us feedback. If you attended the last week session, do please fill out the feedback for that too. But make sure to fill it out so that we get to know your feedback and we can improve our workshops accordingly. So thank you so much for attending a session. Do join us next week for the NumPy and Pandas. Tomorrow we have the Intro to AI session for GDSC. So we'll provide you the basic concepts of AI. So do come to Brunix Hall 131B, 6 to 7 p.m. And Athia, do you have any announcements to make? Or Kevin, do you want to make any announcements for upcoming events?
I don't have any announcements.
You have like a panel?
Yes. So, do you want to?
Okay, yeah, sure.
Okay. Nope. All right. Okay. So tomorrow from 5 to 6 in the Philip Weinstein building, Carosa will be hosting a panel of graduate student speakers. So if grad school is something you're interested, definitely come along. I'll just drop my email in the Zoom chat here. So, if you have any questions about that, feel free to just email me. And then, yeah, that's all I've really got.
Okay, so I even like added my email ID. So if you guys want the solution or have questions about saves and GDSC stuff, so do reach out to me. And thank you for joining us. Hope these workshops were helpful for you. And we'll see you next week. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Sahil.
I had a question. So, hello? Hello? Hello?
Yeah. Okay. We can hear you. Can you speak up?
Oh, okay. Sorry. I don't know what happened there. I just had a question, like where the Intro to AI, like session was, I guess.
Brunix Hall 131B.
131B. Okay,
yeah,
got it.
I can
And
even
what time is it?
6 to 7 p.m. I can send you the link to it if you want.
Yes, that'll be great. Is it
just-
also going to be on Zoom?
I can send you two right now. Can you use it right now?
Yeah, and I think I already emailed you like the code for problem 2. So if you could just email me back.
Oh, okay.
that
Yeah,
would
I
be
can send it
great.
to you. I'll send it to you by tonight. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. This was amazing.
Yeah, bye. Have a nice day.
Bye. You too.